Thank you for joining me, Jag Singh, for another dosage of Positive Minds on the SIKH channel. Positive Minds is a program on which I like to bring on informative and inspirational individuals who give us some great advice on how we can improve our lives and those around us. Okay, you can recently I've downloaded my book, Unbreakable. Unbreakable is a true story based on my upbringing in East London in 1970s, and we were surrounded by racism, and we got through it. So download my book Unbreakable, available on Amazon, and also you can follow me on Twitter for constant motivation on @jagsing_I can. Now, on today's show, I'm going to be speaking about a topic which is quite close to my heart and everyone out there actually, and that's social media. Now, the question I've got asked is social media, how can it be used for our well-being? Now, to answer that question and many more, I have a special guest with me today, Maya Gudka. Maya is an executive coach in the United Kingdom. Maya, thank you for joining me today on Positive Minds.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Excellent. Maya, so how can we use social media for our well-being? So the first question I'd like to ask you, Maya, is what are the positives of social media?
Yeah, so just to give a bit of background, I spent a lot of time last year researching this topic, and I wanted to find the real evidence base, the peer-reviewed journals that were showing a positive relationship between social media use and well-being. And so I found a lot of studies were finding a positive relationship between social media use and people's sense of social support. So that is one area where social media can be really positive. So this was often for minority groups, patients, anyone that felt like they were part of a specific kind of group, interest group. They were able to find a lot of support through social media. Another way in which social media is positive is that it can help to build social capital. Now, just to sort of clarify what social capital is in very simple terms, it's about your strong ties and your weak ties in terms of relationships. And the research is showing that social media can build both your strong ties, so that would be your closer friends and family, but it can also build your weaker ties, so that's your wider levels of connection. So it can do both. So on these various social dilemmas, on these various social elements, there are a number of benefits, but there are many others. That's just a couple of them.
So, Maya, tell me about your amazing career and background, please.
Okay, well that's no pressure there. So I've had a few different aspects of my career. I started off as an economist, so I was working at Goldman Sachs and KPMG and PwC as an economist and financial analyst. And so having had that sort of business and consulting background, I was getting increasingly, as I progressed through that journey, I was becoming a manager and I was getting exposure to leadership training and coaching, and actually found that stuff really inspiring. And so then at that stage, I transitioned from being an economist to being an executive coach. I first did that at KPMG, and then I went on a number of different sort of trainings. And most recently, I have just completed a master's in positive psychology and coaching psychology. And that's when I did this research into the relationship between positive psychology, which is the sort of evidence-based well-being approaches, and social media.
Wow, excellent, superb. So, everyone listening out there and watching, Maya is an expert in social media, as you can tell. And that's why I've got Maya on today, because I've got some great questions to ask you. Now, I'm going to say this, Maya, to you, right? What are the negatives of social media?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think those are possibly more widely known, or they're talked about quite a bit in terms of the effects on mental health. So I think there's a quite a well-known, and there've been documentaries such as The Social Dilemma, which bring this, into the mainstream in terms of how it can and it has been associated with various mental health difficulties, ranging from anxiety to depression, negative emotion such as jealousy, social comparison. So there's a whole host of things. I have to say, having studied the research, it's not always a causal relationship. So it's not that social media causes those. It could be the other way around. It could be that lonely people are going to social media more, but the research just shows that there is a relationship.
The younger generation, Maya, I find that the younger generation now are much more dependent on social media. Is that a good thing, do you think?
I do think this is really tricky, and this is one of the reasons I wanted to research this topic. So, a lot of the papers were looking at how social media affects different generations, and actually, a lot of the older generations benefit more from social media than they suffer from it, because they are already developed in terms of their identity, and they don't have to be so dependent on it, and they can choose whether they engage on these platforms or not. And it is really tricky with younger generations. Shoshana Zuboff, she wrote Surveillance Capitalism, and she described how it's inextricable almost for youngsters. Like, they have to engage if they want to have a normal social life. That's really tricky. And that's exactly why I've done this research, because if you really do need to engage on social media just to have a social life as a late adolescent or a young adult, then you really want to do it in ways which are healthy and not in ways which harm your well-being.
I think, right, because of the pandemic that's happened, Maya, I'm not sure if you agree or not, but due to the pandemic, I found that not only children, not only young children, but adults as well, have become slightly over dependent on social media. You know, more time has been spent on it that as human beings as we should do. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, the data, I guess, does support what you're saying, because pre-pandemic, it was about 45% of the world on social media. The whole world, 45% of the whole world was using social media. And that number is now 54%. So it's gone up almost 10% in the course of a year. And so clearly now more than half of the world are using social media. Before it was less than half the world. So there is an increased adoption. Now that could be, I mean, I don't know about you, but I've heard lots of really heartwarming stories about how people have got their grandmas onto Facebook, and that's enabled them to engage in their local community and access support. So given the levels of isolation that people have been forced into, this is exactly where social media can be a really, really useful tool, but it has to be well managed. And just like with exercise, nutrition, over the years, there is so much knowledge and so much advice given on how to manage those things well and plan for them. Less is given to how we manage our time online.
I mean, I think that, you know, you're right in what you're saying, and social media has been very helpful, very informative. You know, people haven't been able to get out of their houses, so obviously they're relying on social media for certain information and that. But now that we're coming out of the pandemic in the United Kingdom, I think we need to start focusing and remembering how to do other activities, such as okay, yeah, go on social media. I know it's there for information and, you know, entertainment. But I think we should be, like you just said there, more exercise, more cooking, more getting out, more activities. You know, it's okay. And I think you hit the nail on the head there by saying that we need to manage it better. And how we do that is by obviously monitoring our children, monitoring our own time on social media as well. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. So what the research says is that full abstinence, that would mean, you know, just cancelling all of your social media, that doesn't improve well-being. The studies were showing that really careful time management, so 20 to 30 minutes, was, if you could limit your time online to that much, that was increasing well-being. So you get most of the benefits from the connection, from the interaction, but what you don't get is displacing other normal activities. And this is the balance that we really want to be striking. And it's going to be different for everybody. But is it enabling? Is social media enabling your life and your well-being? Is it enabling relationships? Is it enabling you to connect and therefore take things offline? Or is it displacing activities? right? Is it meaning that you're sitting in your room where you could be outside kicking a ball around? So which one is it doing? And that's what we need to be asking ourselves. And that balance is always is going to be different for everybody.
I mean, what you just reminded me of, there's a small cartoon caption I saw a little while ago, is where in the 70s and 80s, it was more like, your mum asked you to come inside from playing cricket and football, and we wanted to play football and cricket until, the sun went down. But now it's kind of like turned around a little bit. And in this cartoon caption, is very funny, was where mum's actually trying to drag the boy out, say, go and play football, go and play cricket, the 70s, 80s. And I remember, mum used to say it's got dark out there, come inside. But now I'm finding that the next generation is actually spending more time cooped up in that room, on their social media and games. And, is it healthy? Is it good for the well-being of the child? Is it good well-being for us as adults? I don't think so. So I think that time that you're saying there is perfect. We just need to monitor our time and reduce our time on social media. Maya, if someone listening out there or watching right now are a little bit concerned about the time that their children are spending on social media, what would your advice be to them?
Yeah, it is really tricky. And so my first thing is, well done for noticing, well done for being aware that this is going on, and well done for taking that, step of sort of reaching out or voicing your concerns. I think it's really important that people do talk about these things, that, they engage in discussion around it, and they don't just sort of push it away. So that's the first thing. It's really hard, with the infiltration of screens. It's not what we were raised with. So to know what to do. What I encourage is, there's no social media is good or social media is bad here, right? All there is how we approach it, right? So what I would encourage is to take more of a strengths-based approach and say, look, instead of focusing on it as if it's the source of all evil and saying we've got to reduce, and then you're creating friction with your child because they're saying, yeah, but I want to go on, and they've got their social needs are therefore not met, and you've just got you're at loggerheads. Then that's not going to be productive. Focus on what you can actually improve on. So if you notice, well, you know what, yeah, they are drawn to their screens, but these are the times when they're not. These are the times when they do lose themselves in other activities. This is what they really enjoy. I've noticed that they've got a bit of a hobby here, and that start fueling that stuff and start saying, how can I just increase the time they're spending on these other pursuits? So you're not putting all your focus on, and demonizing social media, but you're actually building and strengthening up everything else. So that's what I would encourage. It's that strengths-based approach. Nobody is 100% addicted, or if they are, of course, you can reach out for help. But the average person is not. The data is showing that the average amount of time being spent on social media is 2.5 hours per day. So that is probably more time than we spend exercising, probably more time than we spend eating. That's why I believe that we need to manage that time extremely well. But on the other hand, research is also showing that excessive time online is called 3 hours plus. Only after 3 hours plus, and this is studies in children, so not even young adults, studies in children, more than 3 hours spent on life only marginally reduces well-being. So it's not it's not a disaster. What they did find in that study, the most important influencer of that child's well-being was their offline relationships. Yeah. So I would say to those parents, stop worrying about social media, but really encourage their offline relationships. That's something constructive you can do. And the final thing I just want to add here is just think through your routines. How is your family life set up in a way that encourages them to spend more time online by themselves, or that encourages all these other things that we know are good for well-being: relationships, time outside, activities which are physical, cooking, other hobbies, discussion. Is your family life and your routines, are they supporting all of those other things as well?
Yeah, yep. That's perfect. That's perfect, Maya, the way you put that. That's a great answer. Because with me, myself, obviously I do Positive Minds. I'm a writer, and I do all sorts of different bits and pieces. And a lot of people say to me, well, I'm only on one platform. I'm only on one social media platform. I could go on many more if I wanted to. But like you said earlier, I monitor myself. I must spend at least about, say, 30 to 40 minutes a day, roughly, on social media, and then I just cut off from it because, to me, I like to find alternative action to take, like washing up, tidying up, cleaning that cupboard that you haven't cleaned for ages, And during the pandemic, I'd agree that we've all been challenged. Okay, we've all been challenged because we've been, restricted from going out and that, and it has become a bit of a reliable source, social media. But during the pandemic, I said to myself, do you know what, Jake? Let's put myself to the test. Okay, I'm going to put myself to the test. I knew that my daughter Alicia was spending a lot of time on social media in her room, blah blah blah. So what I did was, I said to her, well, let's play chess, and she's never played chess in her life. At this time, she'd done an English assessment, and the results came up about 25%, 30%, which isn't brilliant, but she tried. Then I tried to take her away from it. And like you said, it's not a matter of get off it, get off it, get off it. It's give the child an alternative. And I did. I said, let's play chess. And she goes, I didn't play chess before. We played chess. She really got into it, and it became a regular habit. We're playing it every day now. To me, that was an achievement because, she's getting away from social media. But the miracle that took place is that she did an English assessment again a few months later, and she got 85%. Now, what's going on here? Is it because and it's not only just chess, we played football in the garden, we started playing other board games, just every day there was a daily activity which took away that time that she'd spend on social media. And there was actually an increase in the English assessment. I mean, what happened there?
Yeah, well, I am not an education specialist, so I cannot dissect, and she's a sample of one there, so I can't dissect exactly what happened. But what a beautiful example you've shared there of exactly what I was saying before around focusing on strengths. So you picked an activity and you worked on that with her. And, there are so many benefits with chess: executive function, strategic thinking, concentration. There are so many aspects of, cognitive elements, which are really positive there. And working on that and building that up instead of just thinking I've got to reduce her time online, you've taken a strength-based approach already. You then mentioned there were other activities involved as well. And so, we can't do a lab experiment on her. I mean, there are experimental studies being done. But so far, I don't think there's much to say that it's actually the time that you spend online that is ruining your brain. It's all those other activities that it's stopping you from doing that are so important to children's development: discussion, executive function. And that what I mean by executive function is the ability to make your own decisions, choose how you spend your time, navigate your thoughts. When you're fully scheduled and then you're spending time on screens, you don't have time to think for yourself. Whereas something like chess helps you to think for yourself. So all of those activities have supported her cognitive function. And where the connection between the specific English assessments, I can't give you an answer there, but it clearly you've taken some proactive action and you've seen the benefits. And I think that's a beautiful example to share. And I'm sure others will have similar things they can do with their kids based on their interests and also your interests, because you probably like chess, right? So you picked something that you enjoy doing, and so you enjoyed your time with her as well.
You're right. Yeah, excellent. You're right. You're so right there. Yeah, I do. It's something I enjoy. And, I've got her to sit down and I've got her involved, and, and it became like a family thing, and it's also about taking her away from the fact that she's on the phone, iPad, games. And, that everyone listening out there, watching, the same applies to you guys. And I believe, Maya, that as adults, we need to live by example. Now, if I'm sitting there, like I said earlier on, and in the household, it's a regular thing. I mean, sometimes I walk in a room and I see my wife, boy, and daughter all on their phones like that. And it's like, I've got all this going on, all this stuff going on TV, and, writing a book. And I should be spending more time on my phone than any one of them. But it's a pattern. So I like you said, I'll give them an alternative. Like, guys, let's go. Alicia, let's make some cakes, or Josh, let's just go upstairs and have a game of chess and that. So as adults, we all need to do that. Maya, please tell me, I've only got a few minutes left, Maya, and we could go on talking forever. Very quickly, if people want to know more information about yourself, about your podcasts, I understand you do some podcasts as well. Tell us about your website so people can connect.
Yeah, so exactly. If you go to my website, which is mayagudka.com, you will find everything there. I've got a podcast. It's a new season, and it really is the sort of antidote to social media. It's called The Golden Hour, and it's all about building routines and habits and setting your goals around having 1 hour every day that is strategic use of your time, that is devoted to those activities that take you closer to who you want to be in your life, whether that is meditation, exercise, or deep work, strategic work, all of those things that are not your natural, go-to thing, uses of time. So that's my podcast called The Golden Hour. Definitely check that out. And then you can also find me on social media. So you can find me at mayagudka.com, at mayagudka on Twitter and on Instagram.
Maya, listen, guys, I've checked Maya's website out and it's amazing. It is so informative. You've got some great well-being stuff going on there, leadership stuff going on there, nutritional stuff going on there. I mean, it's really good. So, guys, please log on to Maya's website and check out her amazing work that she's doing. Well, Maya, listen, it's been great today. And one thing you did say, well, which I'd quickly like to say before time runs out, you said some amazing words when we spoke on the phone a few days ago. And this also, this is regards to social media as well. What happened in the pandemic stays in the pandemic. Okay, and that was some great words. I know, okay, we've all been relying on social media. I understand that for information and obviously for entertainment to get us through this stuff. But like you said, what happened in the pandemic stays in the pandemic. Let's start exercising. Let's start walking about. Let's start playing chess. Well, listen, I've gone talking to you forever, but now that time's up, and I'm going to have to say thank you so much for coming on Positive Minds today. And you know what? I wish you all the best and good luck. And I'd like to bring you on again soon as well.
Yeah. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, and it sounds like you're doing great things with your kids as well. So lovely to chat to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. So there you go, guys. Maya Gudka, link onto her website. Okay, get some great information from there. And, as we just said, what happened in the pandemic stays in the pandemic. Let's get out now. Let's start exercising. Let's start moving about a bit. Let's start cooking. Let's start doing different things, learn a different language, do something different, something they've always wanted to do. Find a passion and build around it. Okay, build around that passion. Wherever it is that you want to do, build around it. Guys, thank you so much for joining me, Jag Singh, on Positive Minds today. Keep smiling and keep moving forward. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.